I'm a church kid.
We
you
are
guys,
all church kids.
hands up if you're a church kid.
Good.
Yeah. Segue again now into boundaries, right? Especially as it relates to
Love
community now.
Boundaries are something necessary for any kind of progress in life.
Yeah.
For a healthy life. For
Yeah.
anything that you're going to do, you
For
need
sure.
good boundaries. And the best part is that I discovered is that Jesus had boundaries.
Yeah.
Many a
legit.
time he was just like, all right, go off on the boat. I just need some alone time now.
Alright.
Sweet.
Welcome everybody to the Sky Lounge podcast. I am your host, Timmy Sky. This is episode 2, or rather episode 1 in our new set, the Sky
right.
Lounge. Let me know if you guys like it. We are
Vibes.
super excited. This really has been a project of passion, honestly, and we are so excited to just, as I said in episode 1, invite you on the journey as we learn. And I'm just so excited for today's conversation. We have 2 amazing guests on the show today. We have the love of my life, my wife, right? She is just
It's me,
honestly,
guys. I'm here.
Swore he was going to say something different.
and then of course we have superstar, big singer coming all the way from Kingston, Jamaica,
Whatever,
joining
yeah.
us. My wife's sister, my sister-in-law, a very close friend of mine. Her name is Jessica Royce.
What
What's
up,
going on,
Timmy?
Jay
I'm
Royce?
You're doing well.
Welcome. This is really big. This is really
Here we
big.
are, Tim.
Thank you so much for joining
Live.
me.
Yeah.
Risa, how you doing?
I'm good. Not bad at all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me.
Proud of
as
you, Timmy.
well.
Look at
You
you
know?
doing the things you spoke about.
Yeah, it's
gotta do
really
it.
cool. Before we started recording, we are just saying it's crazy that we're here. Like, it's really crazy that this was a dream at one point and it's like actually happening. And you know, the Sky Launch podcast is really a space for conversations. It's a space for us to learn.
Chit-chat.
Naturally, I am a Christian, and so a lot of what I speak about will come from that place of faith. But really and truly, we want to talk about communication. We want to talk about leadership. We want to talk about life in Jamaica, all aspects of it. And so
Enjoy.
we're just excited to, be content creators in a sense and putting out content for Jamaicans, by Jamaicans, and really the world at large. So we know the best is still yet to come, and we're just super excited. So today's conversation, guys, we are talking about life, I guess, in general. And like I said before, I'm a church kid, as are you
We are all
guys.
church kids.
Hands up if you're a church kid. Yeah, all 3 of us put our hands up if you can't see, because you don't know. Some people are listening, some people are watching on YouTube.
that's true.
So I have to big them up nonetheless.
Man, guys, this is
But
so official.
it's
like,
really
cool.
fun, really
Mics and
fun.
all.
And so a little background for me, and then each of you can give me your background as well. So for me, and I might have shared this in episode 1 as well, but maybe you join us for the first time so you don't know. So on my side, I grew up in the Apostolic Church, right? Which is like no earrings for men or women, right?
Long
No
skirts.
pants for the women, natural
Sleeves.
hair, them type of vibe there, clap hand, Holy Ghost Spirit Church. And it was just a vibe, honestly. It was rough at times, a lot, but I'm grateful for the opportunity and the experience that it gave me, I really am who I am because of how I grew up, and so for me, I am a church kid through and through. On my paternal side, my dad's side, his parents are pastors, both of them, and on my maternal side, my grandfather is a pastor.
Yeah.
And then my mom and dad separately both grew up in the church, were both leaders in the church. They have their respective professions, but naturally, like the church,
That
is
was
in there
it.
through and through. And so I grew up in that. And now I've married into another church family, which is so interesting. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your side of that now, guys.
Cool. Go for it, Chris.
All right. So, Jessica and I,
Yeah.
we are 2 of 3.
Let's go.
There's Lauren.
Big up Lauren, we're
the
being
eldest
there.
sister.
Yeah.
Big up yourself, Lauren. So our daddy, originally, he was a lawyer. It was quite lovely at that moment. And then,
Yep. And he
And
sat us
then-
down one day.
yeah, and told us that the Lord called him to the church.
Wow.
And that he was going to do this pastor thing.
Yeah.
Our lives changed drastically. I joke.
But it did though.
It did though. Yeah. So yeah, we somehow ended up being pastors' kids.
You would have been like what, 8, maybe 8.
I was probably 8.
Lauren
Yeah.
was probably, I don't know, early.
I was in prep
teens.
school for sure.
Yeah, we're all in prep
Jeez.
school. Lauren was probably starting high school.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then since then, it's all been about church.
Yeah.
We have
Literally.
grown up in church almost every day of the week.
Wow.
Yeah, we're church.
Whether it's that we got picked up from school and went straight back to church.
Yeah.
Or mommy is a doctor.
Yeah.
She no longer practices, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And ministry
Church
and church
kids,
has
in
always
and
been a
out,
part
yeah.
of our life.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're church kids through and through.
Yeah, man.
And what's pretty cool now is you fast forward to right now, all 3 of us, we all go to the same
Doing
church.
exactly what we
We're doing what our parents did.
You know, in
yeah.
a sense, history has repeated itself. You
Literally.
know, Rita and I, we co-lead the young adult-led ministry at
Yeah.
our church, Solarfield Chapel.
Love
if
it.
you're looking for a home church, why not join us on a Sunday, guys? So yeah, we lead meetup, and Jessica, you lead alongside us. In
I
fact, you used to be
do.
in charge of.
And she handed it
meetup.
over
Back
to
in
us.
the day, used to fully work for the church, be on the
Yeah.
payroll, all
Yeah.
of these
Yeah.
things. And so yeah, we're doing ministry together, and so we're very much involved. And so I figured that's kind of where we'd land the plane, just to start the conversation. And the topic was, you know, we were in the car talking, because we are all gym buddies, by the way. We all go to the gym every morning.
train in black.
Good vibes all the time. We train in black, you know.
That's right.
And we were just chatting, and Jessica is actually the one that proposed this topic, which is, you know, talking about what we've learned from those who have gone before us, but also what we want to unlearn from those who have gone before us, especially as it relates to church, ministry,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So let's kind of just kick it off right there. Just talk to me. What was the thinking for that? And like, just, you know, wherever that takes us, let's go.
Well, it was a wide conversation.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. So there's many, many different angles that we could take with this.
Yeah, man.
But basically, I think it started because we're thinking about just our peers and ourselves in ministry, and kind of the fact that our church is in transition right now.
Yeah.
So there's the older generation, the more mature generation,
Yeah, big
and then
people
there's
them.
us. But then now we're seeing like Gen Z, who is not really young, but they're coming. They're in their 20s. They're coming up, right? And so we're seeing more and more like this responsibility coming to us now. We're saying, well, in a few years, probably we're going to be the ones to lead.
Yeah.
So really looking at what our parents have done and saying like what's been really good about that, and then looking back as well. And then being like, well, what do we not want to carry forward? Because there have
Yeah.
been some difficult things as well as really great things.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
So talk to us about, let's like make the sandwich, right? So we're
Okay.
going to start good.
Okay.
Like what's thing we want to carry on? What have we learned? What's thing we want to not unlearn and probably not repeat?
Yeah.
And then we can go again, but bounce it. So
Yeah.
what's the first thing that comes to mind for something that we have learned that we want to continue?
I think for sure faithfulness. That's the first thing that comes
Yeah,
to mind.
yeah.
Like if you think about your grandparents,
Yeah.
your parents, like us.
To this day.
Yeah, man.
Still.
To this day, like
Still in it.
was just like that call was never like, it's for this this time, and then we just like
Yeah.
did something else. Like I really think the fact that they stuck to it, that's something that we can definitely like admire. Like when I
Agreed.
think of the elders in our church, I think in the past before I used to be like, man, why them doing this for so long, blah blah. But like now looking and being in ministry and seeing
Yeah.
how difficult
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
and the challenges that come up, and the fact that the enemy like fights you on it the whole way through, and the fact that these people have stuck it, I think that's something very
big.
admirable.
Yeah, I like that. And I'll piggyback on that. I agree with you 100% because, you know, you spoke about transition, and I think that's a perfect word to describe what's going on with the church at large, but also in our local church. Because back in the day, for them growing up and being called to ministry,
Yeah.
there was never like money in church
That's
or
true.
anything.
That
There was
has
never like
changed,
an
yeah.
organization. It was
Like the
never like
business
a
of church.
profession that
Yeah.
you like quote unquote aspire to be do. You know, for my grandparents, I know for sure like theology school. That what was that?
Yeah.
No,
In
you
fact,
just-
it was like a loss. to
yeah,
say
it was a
right?
big
That's
loss,
the
you know.
truth.
And so even I just think about my grandparents on both sides, and really and truly, they worked to fund the ministry that they felt called to. Like, you know, the first church my grandfather's or the first building that they had was literally at the house. Like they just opened up their living room and said, "Yeah, this is us for
Yeah.
church," and it was just little, any little money that we have, and it was like a whole family thing. And so, and we've seen that repeated, you know. And so, like for me, I don't get excited about the the big lights and the big stages and like a fired up message
Yeah.
as much as I do about
Like
seeing
the
the
event of it.
consistency.
Yeah.
I don't get excited
Yeah.
about the event. I more get excited about the consistency over time that we've seen. And
Yeah.
like honestly, we'll have such great examples. I mean, your dad is still pastoring to this day.
Still there.
And it's like legit. Like we're seeing it in the trenches, So I think for me, I just look forward to that what gets me excited is maybe like 15 years down the line, I'm still in it. I still love Jesus and I'm still serving. May not be in the same capacity or way, but still committed to the call.
Yeah.
How about you, Rissa? Talk to me. Any thoughts on that in terms of the consistency or just something that you've seen that you love?
That we
and,
want to tackle. Continue.
Don't forget to talk in the mic.
Sorry. Consistency is a big one for sure.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of goes with the faithfulness thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
I thought about one a while ago.
Yeah, man, let's hear it.
I just lost it though.
That's okay.
wait,
It wasn't the consistency. It was.
Working
Oh,
hard?
I know what it was. It was teachability and how they handle conflict.
that's a good one.
That's good.
Yeah.
You have to expound
That's
on that
good.
for me now.
I don't know. Do you want to explain it? No.
Like how
The fact that, so for example,
I do
I
get
find like in our generation, when we have conflict, like we become very passive aggressive. So
Yeah.
like the conflict turns into something online.
Yeah.
It turns into somebody talking to a friend
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
hear say something.
Right.
Like when I look at my parents and how they deal with conflict, like it's
Yeah,
like
trust
we're
me.
meeting.
They tackle it
We
head
are
on.
looking each other in the eyeball
Yeah.
and we're gonna talk about things.
gonna talk about
and then
it.
what else is really cool to see is very rarely do you see somebody like walk away out of conflict. Like they will sit through that
or like
tension
having
and
somebody
work
up
it through. Like
true.
and
That's
I think that's
true.
something we don't
Yeah, yeah,
necessarily do
yeah,
very well.
yeah.
I think them just well mature. I don't know. Maybe it's over time they become that mature to be. Because I don't really love conflict.
I don't
to
love
be
it.
honest, it makes
But,
me so
yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's
to
a
see
great
them do
one.
that.
That's a great one. I'm taking cues from those who have gone
Yeah.
before me because naturally I too am conflict averse. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to run away from it rather than not that
Yeah.
I'm running it down, but I'm tackling it head on
Yeah.
when it
Yeah.
needs to be tackled. And I'm trying to do that more, and it's tough. You're right. I think they're good at having tough conversations.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
don't avoid it.
They don't avoid
Yeah,
it.
which is
Yeah, and like even as believers,
Yeah.
like in the way that they hold themselves accountable to the Bible, I think is so different.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't read the Bible like this anymore, but in the past, for sure, like you read it and you kind of say, oh, that's a really cool idea, God, that you said like we should meet with our brother first and then go to the
Yeah,
elders and then blah, blah, blah.
right. But
But
they're
they're just
legit.
like, no, it
This is
means
how you
like
do
going,
it.
so that they'll follow it
Yeah,
to the
man.
T.
Yeah. Take him to the side, talk to him one way that don't work. All right, cool.
Yeah,
Bring
man.
somebody else in.
Yeah.
Hey, that don't work. All right, let's take it up a notch. And then we'll
Exactly.
keep working it through. Work the process.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. You're so right. You're
Thought
so
of
right.
something like fully jumped
Yeah.
out of my head.
It's so
Hold
come
on.
back.
That's okay.
Not confrontation, but not what you said. Conflict. How
Yeah, conflict. Yeah, how will they handle
Oh,
conflict?
man, what
Their
is it?
consistency. We have something with Caesar
Consistency,
right now.
conflict,
Yeah.
and
Hospitality.
no, it was not. Oh, but that's a good one. But no,
Yeah.
it was not. It's gonna come back to me. Give me a minute.
No
It
worries.
was
That's a good one, though, in a hospitality.
Hospitality, yeah.
Hospitality. Again, I think we've grown up seeing it.
Yeah,
in
literally.
fact, people would like to say that I'm naturally like a hospitable person and have like a servant's heart. That's what people would say. But really and truly, I think it's learned. Like I
Yeah.
saw it modeled
know any other
my
way.
entire life. And so I don't know if it's nature or nurture. It's like a mix of both in my
Right.
opinion. What do you think about that one, Jess?
I mean, I think for sure. I also think what was really great about back then is there was so much less pressure to like impress people with what you had. And I don't know if that's what it is,
Yeah.
but I can see so many people around us be like, oh, I can't invite you over. Oh, I can't
Yeah.
this because I don't have.
Yeah.
And I just think like, I don't know if that was a thought.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not true because I've heard our parents talk about people that wouldn't necessarily like
Yeah, that's
be
true.
hospitable or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, they weren't doing fancy stuff.
No, never.
And even
When
when
you
it
do
came to
sandwich.
ministry,
Yeah.
like people just cut up bread and bring it.
Yeah, man.
Like it was just a
True.
part of what people did. It was
Yeah,
just
legit.
give what you
Everybody
have.
brings something
Yeah.
to the table and we're
Yeah.
sharing. We open
Yeah.
up our home and we serve and yeah.
It's love and
I think too. What comes to mind is generosity.
Definitely.
I think just kind of building on hospitality. We've seen those ahead of us have such hearts of generosity, and I think it kind of comes with the call, I believe. But I've seen that over and over again, and even just this way we approach money again. This mindset that this is not my money, this is the Lord's.
Yeah.
And I want to feel like it's carrying down and trickling down. but I really just recall like my parents in
sacrifice,
particular,
man.
like whenever it came to the church, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
I grew up seeing my mother tithe, and upon reflection, I'm like, yo, it was really like the money coming from the families at the church with these hearts of generosity that made the church work and run, and the money to
Yeah.
build and do things. It was just like, yo, it wasn't no big offering
Right.
per se, but
Yeah.
it was the generosity and sacrifices coming from those in these positions now that we look up to as leaders, you know? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd piggyback on that one with
Yeah.
faith,
Mm.
because I feel like that's a big one that we've seen as a whole lot. Even like our parents,
Like mommy
Yeah.
and daddy, man.
like
Jeez.
sometimes,
Faith
yeah,
to
man.
step
Mommy
out.
have faith for real.
I don't know how she have so much faith, but like
Yeah.
literally there'll be nothing there, and she'd be
Yeah.
like, "No man,
We're
just
good.
give
We're
we're good, man. Give this
Yeah.
person the last thing."
Yeah.
And then you literally see God provide in some
Yeah.
crazy ways, and I think that has trickled down to us for sure.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
The
I
other
agree.
thing that
Yeah.
came back to my head was it was from the one from before, offense. Like they're not easy to
Take offense.
Take
Stay
offense.
offended,
Stay offended.
yeah,
Yeah,
or get
that was
offended,
something that I
yeah.
feel like.
I don't know if that's like learned over time
know.
or if that's how they've
Or is
been.
that maturity
Because
thing
we
over
also
time?
know people who've walked away
Yeah,
because
man.
they've been solidly offended from that
Yeah.
generation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I know I used to be that. I used to get offended really easy. So maybe it is something that comes with growing and
maturity.
maturity. Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to piggyback on what you said about generosity.
Talk to
I
me.
think generosity with their time as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And this might transition us to like talk sandwiching, the
Yeah,
sandwich.
man.
But,
I think it's a
but in a
perfect segue,
good
yeah.
way, I can see where they're willing to give up themselves very sacrificially to the church and like to the work of the kingdom.
Yeah,
To sound
yeah.
very spiritual.
Yeah, no, it's good.
But and they don't really measure like, oh well, I did 2 hours here, so
Yeah.
now I'm done.
That's it for the
right?
month.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then now to transition us
Yeah,
in the
talk to me. What do
opposite
we want to
direction.
unlearn a little bit now?
I don't know. Like I've seen our families like work
Tirelessly.
like endlessly.
Yeah.
And not necessarily know how to like put a stop.
And people might take them for granted after.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
It's a weird thing,
Is it the
especially.
boundary word that's coming up here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess what it sounds like you're hitting on is almost like that ministry life, work life
Balance.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe there's been a imbalance on the
Yeah.
dedication and work required and that sense of calling to
Yeah.
the ministry. And you know, we are looking on and we grew up in it. So
Yeah.
I think oftentimes as pastors' kids, as church kids, we sometimes get the tail end of the stick.
Yeah, man, you're
you know,
just
where-
waiting there. You're just waiting there as they pray
At
for
the back
people.
of the church,
Yeah,
waiting,
yeah,
and that
yeah.
deliverance will finish.
Yeah, so there has been what seems like an
Hungry.
imbalance on
Yeah.
one end. You know, I think the term we used at one point was like workaholics kind of thing, where you know they're just so natural.
And
Like they
all our
work
parents
hard.
are like
They
that.
work
Yeah,
hard.
they
So,
work
yeah,
hard,
they
man.
work hard, and so they took that from corporate life right
Yeah.
into ministry
Yeah,
life, and
yeah.
it's the same mindset.
Yeah.
And I think there is a bit of an imbalance there. We think because like we look at it, it's like, yo, you're tired, you know,
Yeah.
and they can't stop.
And I think now they're getting better at it.
Yeah.
Like I can even hear like how they speak now.
Yeah.
And like the willingness to take like a break,
Yeah.
to stop and like
Yeah.
to really stop, not just
Yeah.
stop, but actually
Yeah,
be on
yeah,
the
yeah.
phone and like
Yeah.
dealing with things from a
Yeah.
distance. But for sure, like church work never ends.
It never
And like
ends.
the demand from church is literally
It's
like
endless.
a hungry monster that will never be
It's a
satisfied.
beast.
So if you're looking for something to do, like just go to church because there's always
Always
work to
something
do
to
from
do.
like lifting
Yeah.
the chair
Yeah.
to like somebody needed to be followed up on to do something, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's almost
Yeah.
like if you don't put those boundaries in,
Yeah.
you can literally give every single second of your life to this place. Yeah.
You're so right. You're so right. Literally everything from even preparation for a sermon that
Yeah.
takes so much time and mental capacity to the execution. After it, it's like you feel so drained, and to do that every Sunday on repeat, you know. And I think even about my dad, because like you said, just church never takes a break, and my dad. Had this saying that he would take a break when sickness takes a break because he's a doctor, right? And
a long
and
time,
so
man.
yeah, and it's crazy because I used to struggle with this concept of the Sabbath because growing up I never saw
Like
it
that
actually
full-
enforced,
yeah.
So in my head, and it's like a balance, right? Because of course he's working hard to provide for his family. He sees his work as ministry, right? And I just know that when I started learning about this concept of operating from a place of rest, it was so hard to wrap my head around because the examples I've seen in front of me didn't do this.
Right.
You know, and it was just like, but if I'm resting, that means I'm lazy.
Yeah.
If I'm resting when I know work is to be done, it's like, are you kidding me? Are you even serious about this? And so it's now to unlearn this, you know?
And it's a funny thing too, because I think we also have like, if people make fun of Gen Z for this, but like being the opposite, which is like 5 o'clock hit, like, don't speak to me. Right? And so I'm trying, so I think for us at least, we'll have to figure out like, okay, how do we give in that way where it's like, not ridiculous, right? Like we're not like, no, this is my time, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, like balance it with not overworking. That was one of the hardest things for me, definitely, like working in church. To feel like I could actually shut it off. Because my mind will just be constantly going. And because I think of how we were raised, like I had so much guilt around being like, oh, I should be doing something. And even like now, like I don't work at church now, but my day to day, like planning my day, like for me to not do something in the day is so hard for me to just be still. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
What do you think about that, Ruth?
I don't know. I guess for me, the rest thing is funny because I feel like because we're so young, like we have to
like
work.
we're in
Like, I'm
grind
like,
mode.
this is a time where you have to just grind.
Especially
but then
as
the truth,
entrepreneurs
especially as entrepreneurs, because if we don't work,
We don't pay.
get
ain't no money coming in. So it's something I'm definitely learning. I don't know. Because I've seen where people take it to the extreme. And then I see where extreme as in just arrest all the time. And
They live from a place of
Where the
rest.
two generations clash.
Is that where
I've heard older people be so frustrated with young people because they're just like, these
like,
people
why
don't
are
work
you
hard.
leaving at this
It's
time
so
and
true.
work
doing this, like there's
Yeah.
stuff to do, like do you care about this? And then on the opposite end, it's just like, what's wrong with these people? Like why won't they go on vacation and just live? Like why are we
Like,
working
give us
so
a
hard
break.
for, you know?
It's something we have to
It's
learn.
it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act, a rhythm, you know. And I mean, even to just think about how we've kind of made that play out with us today is, you know, I think of the ministry again that we lead, Meetup. You know, so we run in a cycle or a rhythm where we go 3 months on, 1 month off, 3 months on,
So
1
nice.
month off, and it's really been a blessing, you know. And you know, we meet once a week on a Monday. Today's that day actually. Meetup Monday. Big up Meetup. But yeah, it's an interesting tension to figure out. And you know, even like when you get more involved, because you know, a big thing that we're all about is community. And you know, so for example, I lead a group of men at my house
And it
on
can
a
consume you
Tuesday,
every single
and
day.
then I have Meetup on a Monday. We have church on a Sunday. So that first 3 days of the week are very intense, and then the next 4 days next 4 days of the week are like filled really with work. You know. But I find like factoring like the gym in the morning, that's like even though we're working, it's rest for me in a sense.
That's not rest
you know?
for me. Either.
It is. I love it. It's a joy.
It helps my brain.
It does.
It
It
does something
definitely
for you
helps me mentally.
But yeah, it's interesting. And so even now piggybacking on, you know, we're talking about
Unlearning
the
stuff.
imbalance and the, you know, it's easy to get sucked in, right? And I think maybe one thing that we've seen is that lack of balance on one sense, or lopsidedness on one sense. And this kind of wants me to segue again now into boundaries, right? Especially as it relates to community now. So talk to me about that. What are your thoughts on boundaries? Not necessarily what we've seen in the past and want to repeat or unlearn, but let's just talk about boundaries in a sense. What does that look like for you guys now? What has it looked like for you guys in the past, or what do you want it to look like ideally? You know, let's talk about boundaries.
Boundaries. Wow, I feel like this has been the word of my
buzzword.
season for like the last 2 years. Timmy and I, boy,
Rough.
we never used to have much boundary in our
Definitely
life.
not.
It was very
Definitely
bad,
not.
man. We
Well, people in our bed.
What
like,
people literally like
And
people
you have
were
to qualify that
Let me
statement.
no, not
Sitting.
like that. Yeah. But like people were just around us 24/7.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. When I look back now, I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And we had to just lots of stuff happened. We had to just figure it out and say, okay, this can't work. And we had to just prioritize like alone time. Like there's no way you can have people around. I think it just drains you after a while. No matter how
Definitely.
long you do it for, after a while, it's gonna affect something going to get affected along the way. Somebody going
always
to
has to
affected.
give.
Yeah,
Something
something
has
has
to
to
give.
give. Literally.
there's like a limit to
Yeah.
what we have to
Yeah.
give.
Yeah.
And we think, maybe when we're younger, like we think, I mean, I am still young, but when we're younger,
Yeah.
maybe we think we have this endless capacity of
Right.
like time,
Yeah.
of resource, of whatever
Yeah.
it is, and so we just give it. But definitely it's been a learning curve.
Absolutely.
And we're still learning,
learning,
and
still
still
learning.
making many a mistake with that.
Yeah.
But for sure, boundaries are something necessary for any kind of progress in life.
Trust
Yeah.
me.
For a healthy life, for
Yeah.
anything that you're going to do, you
For
need
sure.
good boundaries. And it
Need
sounds
it.
buzzy, but it's because it's truth.
Yeah.
And the
Amen.
best part is that I discovered is that Jesus had boundaries.
Yeah. Legit.
Right? Many
Legit.
a time he was just like, all right, go off on the boat. I just need some alone time
Yeah,
now,
man.
folks.
Yeah.
Or he was just like, all right, yeah, that's it. We're not going to rush to this person's house to heal them. The person will die. I can raise them from the dead. But like, he was never like, oh shoot, like let me try and meet this person's need. Da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da. So it's not this concept that has just come out of anywhere.
No.
God is the inventor of boundaries.
Yeah, it's biblical.
Yeah, it's completely biblical.
Yeah. I think for me, I had to unlearn that boundaries in my head were bad, you know? So like I think before it's a buzzword, and it's a buzzword in a positive and a negative sense, in that some people are like, boundaries, it's a wall, you can't get past a certain place
you
with these
offend them,
people.
toops.
And like,
Yeah.
oh, you offended me? Oh, boundary up.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
talk to me. You know, no, I don't. So I'm unlearning that thinking, right? And so for me, being a 100% extrovert, or really 98% according to the test, extrovert, you know, for me, I guess, and I think naturally a very positive person, I tend to like want to shy away from that thought of, you know, it being a bad thing, boundaries being a bad thing. And so like Risa was saying, to her point, when we started dating right into marriage, or first year, oh my gosh, I mean, just to show you how bad it was,
Their honeymoon,
we
guys.
we were
Their
like inviting
honeymoon.
people to join us on the honeymoon, right?
it was very
you know, the night of the marriage, like when we got married, it's
We
like,
did-
yeah, we
you
left
never
the
go to the
wedding,
hotel.
all of us go to the hotel, and we're
And
all
we're
chilling in
par.
the lobby, and it's
I'm
just
like, what is going on here?
interesting. You're looking back, whoa, like, you know, that wasn't the smartest thing in the world, you know. But you know, like Risa has said, to her points again, we have become very intentional with boundaries, especially with our relationship. And I think whatever relationships you prioritize, whether it's with your husband, with your kids, with you know, your significant other, you have to make time for that. And like you said, Jess, if you say yes to something, you're inevitably saying no
to something
to
else,
something
yep.
else, you know. And I think in the context of community, in the context of church and ministry, it's so easy to say yes to the church and kind of putting everything in
one
that
basket,
bucket by saying the church. And inevitably, when you say yes to the church and you say, I'm saying yes to God, but ultimately you're saying no possibly to your husband, you're saying no to your kids, you're saying no to your health, you're saying no to so many different things. And I think, too, again, I guess it builds on that thought that, you know, in the past, there probably weren't as many boundaries in a sense for those who have gone before us as well, especially when it relates to like their time and what they prioritize in a sense. And so we really have to be so intentional about that now. And so simple ways in which that's played out for us now is that we have a weekly date night. It's set. It's just for us. Something I heard from somebody is that what gets calendared is prioritized. You know, like what you put on the calendar is prioritized. And so you look at your calendar and you say, okay, cool. Where's the boundary here? You know, where's the my time? That's our next buzzy thing. Like I need some me time, self-care. And, oh my God. And again, that's a tension that we live in.
We kind
where,
of
you know,
swing too far.
yeah, you know, so one
extremes,
generation was like, no, none at all.
Yeah.
And now the other generation is like, all of it. All, you know, like everything is me time. This is too much for me. This is too much stress.
yeah,
Like this is, oh my God, I can't manage this. And it's like, if it's hard, it's terrible.
Yeah.
No, we're not saying that at
Yeah.
all. And we're trying to find that balance, which is turning out to be pretty hard, you know?
I was going to say, like, so just talking on the boundaries thing, when you don't have boundaries and then you start relationships with people not having boundaries, and then you try to now enforce boundaries, inevitably it causes tension in the relationship, and it can literally lead to like people
That's so
deciding
true.
like, do I want to move forward
That's
with
so
you
true.
with this new like set of rules that you
so
have,
true.
or or they just be like, okay, peace, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I've seen that like happen and play out with us.
Legit personal experiences with that.
Amen.
Boundaries are put up and offenses
So
received.
not having
and
boundaries, not being clear, not being truthful, it can really hurt people in a relationship if you don't come out from the front, like with like, could set the expectation right, you know?
You're so right. You're so right.
Sure.
And I think again, like just echoing what we were saying in the past or earlier in the convo, which is, I guess when there's that shift that takes place, and ultimately we're people that are growing, and so we're changing day by day, moment by moment, year by year, you know. And so when that change happens, sometimes I think my natural conflict aversion would shy away from the conversation. So I'd make a change in my attitude, but not address it and say it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the person would be hurt. Now, like, what? How comes? You know, I used to come
Yeah.
over every Friday. Now I can't come over on Friday. Like, what's going on? And just like, I didn't, you know. So another thing I'm learning actually from those who are ahead of me is that I don't choose how you feel. You know, I don't get to choose how you feel. But I'm responsible for what I can control. And so in a big way, communication is so important. And going forward, you know, we've taken the stance like, boundaries are necessary, very important.
Definitely.
And we're figuring out how that works, how that looks, because it's not that I'm saying I hate you. It's not that I'm saying I don't love you. In fact, I'm saying I love you, but this is where we don't go past a certain point, you know, and that's okay, you know. There are only things that Rissa knows and sees about me versus stuff that probably only Markian knows and sees about you, and that should be the case, you know. And I guess it's a journey that we'll have to go through to figure out what that looks like. How do we do it, you know, while still following God's example and loving people, you know, but we can't make people decide that for us. We have to decide that for ourselves.
For sure. I think all of us can say right now, like, meetup is a priority of our lives.
Definitely.
Not at number one necessarily, but it's up there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so very often, like, ministry things might come up, but I'm always weighing it against, but like, will this affect my time, the availability of my time to give to this space, to these people? Like, in my mind, these are the people that God has called us to serve in this season. And so when it becomes like, oh, I'm out of that, it's like literally in my mind, I go like, oh, well, that's not the priority. And, you know, I can see where that's been very harmful. But like, that space is just what I know God has called us to.
And so there's a responsibility there to steward what He's put in our hands and take care of it, but also to steward again what He's put in our hands, whether it's our family.
And because, you know, by giving you time elsewhere, you almost begin to hurt what it is that God has actually given you to serve. Right? And so you don't have the opportunity to build a relationship with people in that space, you know? So, it's a funny thing.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, man. Balancing act. Rough.
And we're learning.
Yeah, we're learning. And I guess conversations like this, I think, help us. And I hope they help you as well, whoever is watching. Because really and truly, a big part of this is that we want to add value to your life. We want to just share and be open with what we've gone through. And just, you know, I really do believe conversations bring clarity. And so that's what we're doing here today. I kind of want to segue now, Jess, and talk a little bit about music. For those who don't know, do you go by recording artist?
Say I'm an artist.
Do you say you're a recording artist?
If you know me, you know this is nothing.
If you have music on Apple Music,
guys, and I happen to write a few songs and like,
have a whole album
and like whatever
and working on another one.
I don't know.
Okay, so you're in the music world, and I'm just curious about what that's like. For those of you who don't know, Jessica is a singer. She has an album out on Apple Music. You just have to type in Jessica Royce and you'll find it, you know. Big singer. And, you know, one of my fondest memories of you just is when we had just like started hanging out and partying. I remember you'd ask questions around the table like, if money weren't a thing, what would you want to do? And like, I'd flip the question back at you and your answer was always worship. Like, you just wanted to worship, you know. And I think you're doing that. I see you doing it in your own way, and it's pretty cool. And I'm just curious, like, what's that journey been like for you up to this point?
So music has always been a part of, I would say, our lives. Our daddy sings. That's where it started, right? And then our uncle like used to bring music by all the time, and we listen to music. So like, music has always been a part of our things. Worship in particular. Church is literally 50% worship, 50% the word.
Wake up to worship music.
We've grown up singing constantly, singing harmony. So from as early as possible, we're in that children's choir. After that, we're in the teen choir. And then after that, you join the worship team at YM Squared. But I've always loved it. Like in particular, my mom will tell you like I always sang as a child. Like I watch my daughter now, and I say I wonder if that was how I was.
Jessica used to sing herself
because
to sleep
I just
every night.
sing like constantly, sing. I think where it got funny was once you get into a group and then comparison comes in, and then it becomes, oh well, this person sings so well, that person whatever. And then so that's where you start going like, well, maybe music is not my thing because I don't do it as good as somebody else does it, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, fast forward, singing background for people on shows, that type of a thing. I don't know how on earth I ended up doing that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I've just always been around music.
Interesting.
And then worship teams now in particular. Even when I went to the States, was over there. Literally, we went to church one Sunday. And as I was exiting the church, the pastor asked me if I'd sing the next week. He had never heard me sing before.
Wow.
I just wrote on the form that I'd be willing to join the worship team. And so from the next week, I was on the worship team. So it's something that I would say like, oh, sure, like I'm in music, but it's also a God thing. Like I feel like has just followed me.
Yeah.
And I've always been around musical people.
Okay.
So even now, like if you look around me, like there's just so many musical people, and I'm just like, how did this happen? Don't know. God just puts everybody in the same space.
Interesting.
I felt like I was turning 30, if I'm totally honest. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but there's this sense of like, wow, I need to achieve what I need to achieve right now, or else the time is gone and this is not possible.
Yeah.
So around 27, 28, 29, like 9, I knew I was getting that point. I was like, no, I want to make music. And I just kind of decided that I would just spend time writing something every day.
Got you.
And so I wrote something every day until there were 10 songs. I recorded them. And then you have an album. And for some reason, that means something to people.
But it's just
in my
like...
head, it was just like, I was just doing it to check off the thing. And then it was like, oh, you have an album. Oh, we have to do an album this. And congratulations and all these things. But I mean, like, I listen to that now and I say, like, some of it is rubbish. You know what I mean?
No, it's not.
No, I mean, it's not whatever. Because it's just like very similar. This is not rubbish. But in other words, we're starting something. You start something new. There's a learning curve. Anyway, so I did that. And then my life just went to rubbish. That was 2020.
We don't speak about that.
All of our lives went to rubbish in 2020. 2020 was
so
rough.
2020, 2021.
Yeah, rough.
Those are some rough years, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was God, what people would say is like refining who I was and that type of thing. And then coming out of that, I was like, oh, I want to, again, that question came to me about like, if you could do anything, what do you see yourself doing? And it was always like, I see myself on a stage and there's a bag of people and we're just worshiping. So I was just like, I should just do this anyway. So then that's where it led to me doing the show.
Yeah.
And I did that show, had zero expectation about like what would happen. In fact, I walked out there because I wanted to start on time. Our families are on time people. Right? So I started on time, walked out there, saw like the first 3 rows full, was kind of like, okay, God, I said I'd do this for you. And so I just went for it. And then by the end of the night, the room was full. And I don't know how that happened. And I hear so many testimonies about that whole thing. And that's been amazing.
Yeah.
And then after that, here I am now.
Yeah.
Still doing what I've always done, which is being a part of worship teams, being a part of meetup worship. Now I'm in leading meetup worship for right now.
Come on.
And I don't know what God will do next, working on music. I kind of decided I'd always just write. I'd always just sing because that's just what God has made me do.
That's cool.
So I've never really thought of myself as like an artist or I'm doing music or whatever. And even in the music industry thing, like I don't think of myself as like in the music industry.
Okay.
But you know, the thing is like people see you do something and they see an audience and they think like, oh my gosh. Like it's just our human nature to think like, but audiences like literally come and go. Like you want 10,000 people to look at you right now, just go walk on the street naked. It will be on the news and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? But in other words, I don't know. That's never been like the objective. But I just know like I'll always make music and I'll always sing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Very cool. Very cool. So I know you say you're not in the industry, but I feel like you are, right? And I guess what's that space like? I feel like there are probably two cultures. Like I feel like you've told me that you approach it a little different, but there's probably a general way that a lot of people, especially when it comes to the Christian music industry, like what's that space
when I think of Christian music industry and specifically like in Jamaica, I don't like it generally. It's very, and this is a judgment from the outside, not necessarily being on the inside.
Right.
But I've seen where the whole business, money, overlap, where people's desire, not necessarily for Jesus, but because they really want to be famous, and this is a
Right.
niche market.
Right.
Or how people treat each other behind the scenes, where you're not seeing the fruit of people's life, but you're seeing really great music on the stage, and you're seeing people ball and like drop over, but then these same people are cussing out people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like that stuff has really kind of turned me off of that whole world. And then getting to know younger musicians now who are trying to kind of come up in that world and feel, I guess, across all industries where they feel like there's like this ceiling of like you can't progress beyond a point because we're just seeing the same things over and over. The same people going on stage because they control things, like, you know? And going back to like what we were talking about earlier, just the old generation looking on and being just like, why do you think it should be handed to you? Versus like, we worked really hard and it came up and, you know, like, so why should we just put you in front of whatever? So I'm very conflicted when it comes to that stuff. I sort of think Jamaica doesn't necessarily even have an industry in the traditional sense, because there's no office to go to, there's no person to talk to, you know, that type of thing. I feel like my responsibility more than anything is just to honor what God has called me to do, and whatever He makes that look like later on, like it will happen naturally, because that's His will. So I don't ever see myself as like trying to be on a bandwagon, trying to be on a stage, trying to whatever. And just because I don't necessarily want to associate with certain things. I don't have that drive, and that could genuinely be from a place of privilege, because it's a conflict when literally bills need to be paid and what you're doing is your gift. And how do people hire you? Because they saw the Holy Spirit move. You know, it's like a weird conflict to go on. But I know for me, I don't necessarily have that conflict, and so I don't want to be a part of that.
Got you.
Right? And I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want to feel like I'm doing something just to build something. I want to know like what I'm doing is what God has asked me to do in the timing that God has asked me to do. So like right now, Meet Up Worship, I'm like, oh, this is what God has called me to do. Like sure, I could be like, oh, put me on this show, like you have this thing, put me on that, blah, 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 blah. But I don't have that desire in me at all.
Cool.
And I
really
can see how somebody spoke to me once and said, you know, like something might start small, but it can build and it can grow, right? And I think sometimes we try to hop on what exists so many times, whereas if we can stay faithful in serving what exists, but while building something small, so just be in a room with 20 people, write one song, like you don't have to do something grand. But the thing is, and this is going to sound really morbid, 10 years from now, like, everybody's dead. In a very real way. Just like in 50 years from now, like, we're going to go. Nobody lives eternally holding on and clinging to, like, how many great men have we seen, like, die? You know? And so sometimes it's just to wait and be like, you know, maybe one day, if I stay consistent with doing these small things, with rallying singers, with building a really good worship team, maybe one day God might put that on a stage, maybe He won't. But that's what I feel called to do.
That's cool. So the goal is not necessarily, it's not fame. It's more obedience and purpose for what God has called you to.
Yeah, but I want to say that's not necessarily true, because I feel like in my innermost being, if I'm completely honest, like it sounds really fun to be famous. But then on the flip side, like I know that's also horrible. Right? Because I mean, how many famous people have we seen just like go off the rails, right?
It's tough,
And then I don't know if you saw recently, like Kirk Franklin did this thing, but like when you see the stories that go behind people being at that level of like they've been through some stuff, right? And even as we like do certain things, like we see like how like the enemy just like coming at a different level. So do I want to be famous? No. Do I think maybe one day I might be on a stage with a bag of people looking? Sure.
That's cool. That's really cool. That is, I love that, Jess. I love that. So as we wrap up, another thought that we had in mind was this whole concept of excellence versus participation, right? And I feel like it's a perfect segue talking about music and singing, because again, bringing it back to church is a lot of times we can start with music and where we end, right? But a lot of times I've found in church today, right? It's not so much about your skill level and how good you are at something. It's more about your willingness to participate, especially when it comes to singing. So think about like a worship team, a choir. Chances are when you look at the typical Sunday worship team, wherever you go, right? My experience with churches are a bit limited, but when I look around, wherever you go, it's not necessarily that you're an amazing singer, but you're willing to sing, and so we'll put you on the stage. I'm just curious about how you guys feel about that in terms of, again, excellence versus participation. Talk to me. What are your thoughts? We'll start with you.
I'm probably a participator, let's be honest.
Oh God!
I think again I'm gonna preface this by saying we are learning, right?
Yes.
And I'm just talking on what I've observed.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of very talented people leave church and leave worship teams and not want to participate in worship teams and not want to participate in church.
Yeah.
Why? Come on.
Tell us why. Look in the camera.
But I mean, they have their own personal reasons. Everybody has reasons. But one of the common threads that I've heard is basically you're being forced to do something with people who don't necessarily want to do it excellently. Everybody just wants to participate.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing is about when you want to do something really well or when you have the capability to do something really well, you don't really want to do it with people that are not great at it. And that doesn't even mean like they all sing like Whitney Houston or anything like that, but at least the willingness and the awareness to know, like, so for example, I was a terrible group singer at one point, right? Probably still learning a lot because I used to just sing out my throat as loud as I could because in my mind I was just like, I just need to be heard, right? But then one day somebody came to me, I was singing live on the stage and she's like, you need to like keep your voice down. And in the moment, like I felt so offended.
That hurts.
Right? But then I could improve and just shut up a little bit, and it sounds a little better now when I sing in a group. Right? But is that like awareness and willingness to be like, let's get better? Yeah. Versus what I've seen sometimes is almost this entitlement. Like, I'm a Christian, I love the Lord, I have a heart for worship, I have a desire to hold this microphone and be in front of everyone, and you should let me do it because
that's a Christian thing to do. Yeah.
And then you see, like, for example, musicians who are just like rushing through rehearsals, moving on because they're just like, this sound bad, we don't really want to do it, let's just do the thing and get out of there. So I don't know how I address that because even in having been a part of it and now leading a team, I can see where I've followed the pattern of it. Like, it's almost like you do whatever you were taught, and it's very hard to look somebody in the eyes when they're sincerely like wanting to do something and to be like, and the thing is, people can sing a melody, you know what I mean? Like, they're not singing so far off, but then to be like, you know, this might not be where you should spend these 3 hours of your time. You know what I mean? And like, how do you do that, you know? Yeah. And so, but I think it's a necessary thing because I really do feel like we should offer God excellence.
Ooh, come on.
Not perfection, because we're human. But like, our standard should always be excellence. And then there's the conflict of like, if you're not doing what you're actually called to do, and you're spending your time doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, you're like, somebody is losing, like, and you're losing. Because maybe you're actually very good at audio visuals. And nobody will see your face. Because you want to go on the stage with that microphone. You understand? And the body of Christ is hurting. Because somebody's around there pressing those slides when you could do it really. You know what I mean? But we just have this idea sometime of like worship teams as the ultimate, I've arrived.
Or the mic. Whoever is at the front. Like, whoever is at the front is where you should be.
And it's touchy to say as somebody who is on the mic.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky.
But like, for example, I'm not going to be like, Daddy, can you make me preach? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's okay.
And I might be like, it'll be so cool to preach one day. But at the same time, like, it's not necessarily my strength. And so it's like to have the awareness to be like, it's okay to exit. You know?
Yeah. So I think this conversation is twofold because I think in one sense, you have to invite people on a process, right? So just because the desire is there to sing or preach or whatever, hold the microphone or whatever, doesn't mean it's wrong, right?
No.
In fact, let's look at that because God has gifted us, wired us in different ways, and gifting alone, I strongly believe, is not enough, right? There is a process that we have to go through. Skills have to be honed, X, Y, Z.
And really great singers who have no heart for God are not fun either.
Exactly. So it's not just about skill, and it's not not just about heart. It's a mix of the
Mix,
both,
yeah.
right? And I feel like, again, the culture that we see and that we're trying to get out of, right, is from you have the heart and little bit of skill, you good. Or from you have the skill and we don't know really how the heart stay, go on through.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think the conversation needs to change from, all right, cool, let's carry on a journey. So you want to be there, but can you start here? Can you start
Yeah.
on this small space? Not even necessarily on the stage. Can you greet people? Can you serve people? Can you host? Can you whatever? Because ultimately, if the goal and the heart is to serve the body of Christ, wherever we put you, you
Yeah.
know, that's really the mindset.
You see, if you're a
whatever you're
toe
doing.
in the body, be a really great toe.
A toe, yeah.
Because guess what? If you ever lick your toe, like you can feel that thing is missing, you know.
It's important.
Even if like
everybody
the head and
plays
the
a role.
face
Everybody
are,
plays
like,
a role.
Yeah, like it's so important.
Yeah, it's really important. It's really important. And I guess, you know, this going this going to sound away, but I guess we have to learn to stay in our lane in a sense, right?
Yeah, true.
And serve where God has put us to serve, you know, and that may change in seasons. And I think as well, don't stay in the same place, but grow, right? Because especially when we talk about excellence now and skill set, I believe
that's
that
what it is.
or we need to develop and grow. And so when I look at you 5 years from now, I don't think you should sound the same, look the same. I think there should be
And I
growth
think when we say
improvement.
church, sometimes we think, oh, it's okay to just stay.
Or be mediocre
Or,
in a
yeah.
sense or whatever. And I guess I'm drawn to that scripture that says do everything as if unto the Lord. Like put your best foot forward
Yep.
in anything. And I think too, you know, sometimes as Christians our mindset changes when it comes to church versus when it's like our
exactly.
work or something,
Or something
in the
else,
quote
yeah.
unquote work. But like as you say, when we get to church it's like whatever, I'll give you my half-heartedness and whatever.
But it's
you
our
know?
witness.
Yeah, it is. And I think people excellence attracts excellence, one. And it speaks volumes. Like when you can step into a space and everything around you is excellent. Again, not perfect, but excellent, where people are greeting you in an excellent way, parking you in an excellent way, serving you in an excellent way, preaching in an excellent way. I think ultimately the big goal is that it takes away from the shine and light of the person and
Glorifies
really just
God.
points you towards God. And I think as the church, his headquarters on this earth, we're called to do everything in an excellent way and strive to be our best and do our best in whatever. And our best, again, not perfection. It gets better each time, you know? So yeah, we'll have to really fight that culture and mindset, which is, you know, participation and heart over excellence in a sense. And, you know, and I guess part of that is having tough conversations. It really is, you know? But from a place of love, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
From a place of love. Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap up?
Oh, you're looking at me? Yeah, I agree. And what you had said earlier about, have the hard conversations out of love. And remember what Daddy told you about emotion. Like, you cannot control
You don't control
another person's
I can't
reaction.
control how you
That's
feel.
not what it is. How you feel.
Well, also the reaction, how
and their reaction as well. Exactly.
Yeah. And I guess it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. Be teachable.
Yeah,
be able to
exactly.
receive feedback and advice.
And don't take offense so quickly. Even this is me talking to myself as well.
Yeah, because it's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. It's a work in process.
I'm sure you'll get lots of feedback.
Yeah,
from
man.
this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I need to just be humble and teachable.
Teachable.
Yeah, man. I like it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Risa, for joining me for episode 2 of the Sky Lounge podcast. Guys, stay tuned for more. A space to grow, a space to learn. We're just inviting you on the journey. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time. See you soon.
Bye.